Hello! In this short video we're going to go through how we can add any of the DLC outfits for any of my avatars to the avatars themselves and export the avatar with the new outfits from Blender to Unity and prepare the avatar for upload to VRChat. The workflow we're going to be looking at today is going to be for one of the kobold outfits, but if this is being viewed for any of my future releases, the workflow should ideally be more or less the same. It's a pretty simple process. I cannot guarantee that this workflow is going to work for third-party avatars made by other creators, because they might have different ways of packaging and shipping their DLC content. But this is probably going to be the way that all my future clothing bundles is going to be shipped. Okay, so let's get into it. Here we have a folder full of our kobold avatars. We can open the newest one, which I believe is the work file that is currently being distributed on Gumroad. And here we have our kobold. Next up, we're going to navigate to the DLC. You might be trying to get any of these outfits to work, or you might be looking at something that has been released at some point in the future, but again, the workflow should not change. Something that we'll see in most of my clothing blend files is that there's not really going to be a whole lot in them except the clothing pieces themselves, and in some situations like here you actually have to identify which pieces you want to use. For instance, there are two separate swords, you might only want to use one. There's two optional pieces for the back, one for a tail and one for a no tail. And for future avatars there might be similar discrepancies where you have to choose a subset of models that you actually want to use. In this situation we're going to be appending the genes. We can see this is much the same kind of situation. There are several different mesh pieces, and we are going to want to be using the ones that are simply called genes up here in the outliner. All of the skinning data, etc. is stored in each model. We can see here it has all the relevant vertex groups, and all of that will be preserved when we migrate the files over. So the way we do this is we will do all of the work from within the kobold file itself. In the top left we will navigate to File. We are going to go ahead and append a model. Make sure you don't click Link, which has significant differences in behavior. We're going to append. And then we navigate to the Blender file that we wish to append from, in this case the genes file. The moment you hit append, we're actually going to open that target blend file. We're going to see a bunch of different folders. We are trying to append an object, so we're going to go to the object folder. And here we see all the objects in the scene. This is why it's a good idea to open the DLC file up front and identify which objects that you wish to append. You might also in some situations be seeing a bunch of helper objects, but just make sure that you have the name of the object you wish to append, and this should be quite straightforward. In this case it's going to be the genes. We simply hit append, and here we have the genes in our scene. Now we do have a bunch of other stuff loaded as well, and we're going to adjust that in a second. The first thing we need to do is ensure that the genes are able to move together with the skeleton. We can left click the skeleton. We can go into pose mode in the top left. We can select one of the legs and rotate it using the R button. And we can see that the genes are not moving together with the pants. Sorry, with the skeleton. So going back to object mode, we're going to select our genes. We are going to navigate and find the armature, hit Ctrl and left click the armature to select the armature as well. And then we need to parent our genes to the armature by hitting Ctrl P. We're going to parent it using armature deform. And if everything was done right, we should be able to click the genes, click this little modifier icon down here, and see that it has an armature modifier. You will see that all the other body parts also has this modifier, which is what dictates that the model is supposed to move with the skeleton. We can left click the skeleton, we can go back into pose mode, and we can now see that the genes are moving as intended. This means that our genes are now ready to be exported together with the avatar itself. The next step is also crucial. By default, you might have too many parts of the kobold visible, and in most situations this is not something that is desirable. We're going to hold Shift and simply click and drag to minimize and hide everything in the outliner, and then we're going to work our way through and only make visible the pieces that we want to use in VRChat. For instance, we might not want to use any of these corset files, so we're not going to make those visible. We might, in this case, only want to use a male chest, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and make visible here. We're going to, from the body parts, we're going to grab the head. We're going to go ahead and grab the flat chest. We probably need some arms. Let's see, that's going to be the upper body. We're going to want the tail. And we're probably going to want the normal lower legs as well. We don't need a crotch because that's going to be covered by the jeans. If we want to use any of the hoodie parts, we can grab that up here as well. And this is kind of workflow. You can kind of click your way down, just figure out which parts you want to use. Maybe you want to use the hood up instead of the hood down, etc. And then at the end, make sure we grab the jeans as well. And now we have all the pieces we want. Now, before we export to VRChat, we are going to want to join all of these pieces together. This is a destructive step, so it is a very good idea to, at this point, go to File, Save As, and simply save this file as a new copy before you do this next step. So, once you have made your backup, select everything by hitting A. Make sure that one of the mesh pieces is selected last. If the skeleton is yellow, this next step will fail, so just hold the Shift button and left click any of the body parts to make sure it has a yellow outline. Next, hit Ctrl J as in join, and we can now see that all the pieces are joined together into one mesh. We can also see it here in the content browser that all the pieces were joined together. Let's see that one more time. Now we have a bunch of different pieces. We hit Ctrl J, and now they're all joined together. We are now ready to export our avatar to Unity and prepare it for VRChat. We're going to go ahead and go to File. We're going to export as FBX. We are then going to navigate to our VRC folder, which for me is going to be here, VRC avatars. This is my project. I'm going to navigate to my assets. Wait, that's not correct. Where did I put my assets? Oh, they're in the characters, that's why. Oh, it was just sorted strangely. There we go. Characters, we're going to find the Snaggletooth folder, and here we can see all the other variants that I have prepared by default. We're simply going to export to this folder as an FBX. Make sure that you select only selected objects, otherwise you're going to have a pretty bad time. And we just give this a new unique name. Kobold Male Jeans Demo. Export as FBX. And now if you go back to Unity, you can see that Unity is going to be hanging for a second or two. And now if you go to the correct folder, we can see our asset ready to go. Kobold Male Jeans Demo. We can go ahead and pull this into our scene. Let's go ahead and reset to transform and pull this out a bit. Perfect. Next up, we're going to go ahead and prepare it by copying the armature data from one of our other avatars. We change the animation type to humanoid. You could create from default. I'm just going to copy my definition from another source in the scene. The source is going to be kobold_female avatar, which you should have since I already have this set up in the project that I distribute. And then we can simply go ahead and click apply. And our avatar skeleton definition is now prepared. You're also going to have to go ahead and assign some materials. To do that, simply go to the Snaggletooth folder, materials, and start dragging and dropping materials you would like to use. All of these can easily be tweaked on the fly. Let's see, we can go ahead and add a hoodie. Go ahead and add some eyeballs. Actually, I forgot to add eyeballs. And it's not a problem. We can simply go back in here, grab the eyes as well. There we go, there's the peepers. Join those. Export FBX. And the cool thing here is that by exporting the FBX with the same name, it will simply re-import on top of the same file, and there we have the eyeballs. So you can kind of iterate smoothly, not really worry too much about having to do everything over again, because you can see the avatar definition is preserved and we don't have to redo any work. So we can go ahead and apply a few materials. Now you might notice that there is no shader for the genes. There should be a shader file that is distributed with the genes called ms_genes.shader. This should be the case for most of my outfits, unless they have a manual that instructs you to use one of my pre-made shaders. If you have a shader file, you can simply click and drag it into the project. And that's going to add it as a shader file. Shader files are going to look something like these files down here. You can then simply right-click them, hit create, and create a new material, or just right-click anywhere, like here, create material, material_genes_, I'll give the name demo, and just make sure that you set the shader to be the shader that we just imported. Then go ahead and give this a texture. These textures were imported from the Genes DLC as textures. Just drag and drop them straight in to your project. Make sure we also apply the normals, as well as a metallic roughness. In this case, we can just use this grayscale as metallic roughness texture, and we can pull sliders until we're happy with how the genes look and feel. At this point, you might be seeing some very strange colors or shading artifacts on your genes. If that's the case, navigate to the genes texture map, the normal map, the blue one, and make sure that the texture type is set to normal map. It will not by default, so you're going to have to change that and hit apply. If you're seeing shading artifacts all over the model, that's going to be something you have to change in the SDK upload menu. Actually, I'm not going to do it here, but that's going to be an upload setting that you will simply click. It will be named something like auto fix blend shapes, and that's going to sort any kind of shading issues on the model itself. The last thing we have to do to prepare a model for upload is set up the animator and all the other components that we can see on some of these pre-made kobolds. Now, you could be setting this up manually if you know how to prepare VRC avatars. You also have the option to simply go through these components one by one, hitting copying component, going to this one, and hitting paste component as new one by one. Or you can download the very useful Pumpkin tools from GitHub. This is a simple little add-on to Unity that automates the copy-paste of components between VRC avatars. And we can use that to simply copy setup from one of my pre-made gallery kobolds. So you can use that here. We're going to select the one we just prepared. We're going to use this kobold as the source. So we're going to go down to the Copy Components tab, select this as a source, and we're going to go ahead and hit Copy Selected. We're not going to change anything else. At this point, we can see that our avatar has the VRC avatar descriptor. We can see that it has the pipeline manager, and it has a bunch of dynamic bond setup as well. The only thing we might actually be missing is the animator itself, so we're going to go ahead and copy that manually. I might be using an outdated version of Pumpkin because I believe in the past I've seen the animator copy over instantly. We are also going to see that we have an issue where a bunch of these mesh references are not working. And this is a very common issue if you have forgotten, like I just have, to rename the kobold to kobold. Right now the actual mesh is named Hoodie_arms, but all of the avatar logic, the blend shapes, the finger pulses, the animating face, etc. requires the mesh to be named kobold, like we can see for all of the other avatars. Now that we clear that up, we could either copy over components again, or we can simply drag and drop the reference to kobold into all the mesh references in the VRC avatar descriptor that requires this reference. It's going to be this one, and it's going to be that one, and I think that is more or less it. Perfect. And at this point, we are ready to upload. If you have any problems, or if this failed for any reason, or if anything was unclear, please feel free to reach out on Discord or anywhere else you can find me, and I'll be happy to help you out. Good luck.